ସାର୍ ଆସିଗଲେଣି ଷ୍ଟାର୍ଟ କରିଦେଇଥାନ୍ତୁ।
Acha, okay. Now we shall start. Okay. Thank you. So, good afternoon, everybody. I welcome all of you to this session. In the yesterday's class, we have discussed about the significance component approaches like Gandhian Marxist liberal approach and resource mobilization theory, etc. And we have also classified the various types of movements, and mostly with a special reference to the new social movement, and also reflected upon the changing nature of Indian society, where the concept of liberalization, poverty, social change, and also backward classes and Dalit challenge to the dominance of upper caste, and the impact of various factors like caste, gender, class, etc. we have already touched upon. Today, you see, we shall come over to a very contemporary issue, particularly after 1990s. All of us are very much either enamored, impressed with a term called globalization. Economics कुहतु, political science कुहतु, sociology कुहतु, प्रत्येक subject रे globalization has entered into the arena of academic discussion. So globalization is transforming people's definition of selfhood. It has also transformed the people's definition of identity. So, what is the impact of globalization on social movement? That shall make a very interesting study. When we think in terms of globalization, it means what globe is coming. National barriers, they have been relegated. The states have started withdrawing their boundaries, particularly in the economic front. Not that they have surrendered their sovereignty. As far as the squeezing of the supremacy is concerned only in the economic sphere, because there is free competition. Domestic market is linked with the international market. So rules and norms about investment, environmental management, social polity, they have taken a new hue so far as a broader canvas of globalization is concerned. So those who start thinking in favor of globalization, they focus on the opportunities that are seen as concomitant. Globalization में critics भी अछंती, किंतु जो माने प्रथमे तो advocates, जो माने तार support करुचंती, ସେମାନେ naturally they see the benefits which are coming with the bogey of globalization. Globalization means, three things: liberalization, privatization, and globalization. LPG. We usually use the term. And in the international sphere, there are a lot of labor reforms which seem to be accompanying globalization process. And you must have heard about GATT, General Agreement on Tariff and Trade, which was signed at Marrakesh. Developing countries, they have signed that document, including India. But these developing countries, they are being pressurized to keep subsidies to the farmers up to 10% of their value output. And also, it has started introducing what is called a patent regime. Some countries, they have the patent rights so far as goods and services are concerned. So naturally, all these developments which have come in the body of globalization, they have the potential to affect also Indian agriculture, the interest of the farmers, and the process of globalization is also, it has affected the field of environment. Rather, some argue that it has posed a major danger to environment. तार कारण हूँ जो समय गोटे डोमेस्टिक मार्केट और इंटरनेशनल मार्केट लिंक्ड हो गला which encourages free competition among the states. So there is a competition among the states to create proper investment climate. प्रत्येक country चाहे गोटे proper conducive climate create करिया पे for investment. So they didn't bother much about the environment safety norms. So it has also affected environmental concern, and also it has affected women interest. So जगतीकरण एमती गोटे प्रक्रिया जोटा कि सोसाइटी प्रत्येक विभाग को अफेक्ट कला इकोनॉमी सोशियोलॉजी पॉलिटी it has also affected the interest of environment interest of women interest of the backward sections. So there seems to be disillusionments with the state, and it is seen as source of all evils, and the market is projected as panacea of all the economic evils. Globalization आसला पड़े state रो importance टा धीरे-धीरे कमी गला. So some opine that state seems to be on retreat. पछू घुंची आसला. The central role which was assigned to the state and its bureaucracy in developmental projects, it has precluded participation of masses and local people in solving their problems. So local people did not find opportunity to solve their own problem. They precluded, they have been prevented. Until 1980s, many of the developing countries, they have pursued inward-oriented growth strategies. During 1990s, 1990 दशक those decades, they have seen that these countries with these developing countries, even including India, they lost on the path of privatization, liberalization, and deregulation. अनेक समय से उदारीकरण नीति की ग्रहण कले privatize kale, most of the public sectors they have been privatized, and also there is deregulation. State control has been withdrawn. So India also has gone on the same path. Impact of globalization also has affected the Indian policy. So national and international factors, it has influenced India's decision to follow what came to be known as the new economic policy. हमें समझते हैं बहुत new economic policy विषय जानिए, and also we have come across what is called structural adjustment program. କାରଣ world market है सब country में open है गला, developing countries they face a lot of difficulties in competing with the developed world, with the developed countries. For example, India also faced with severe depletion of foreign exchange reserve. एपरिक आमान पाखे sufficient foreign exchange reserve नथिला even to pay for the imports of few months. And what was the alternative? Most of the developing countries they have approached the World Bank or International Monetary Fund for loans. कारण ये जो economic crisis रे developing countries गुड़ा गले सेटा को ओवरकम टाइप में तांके पाखे अन्य धारा नथिला मनुष्य केतले लोन करे जो समय गोटे इकोनॉमिक क्राइसिस भितर जाए कंट्रीज आल्सो फेस द सेम थिंग एंड वर्ल्ड बैंक सेमान को ऑफर कला लोन्स एवं हमर दिन कथा रे वन हु पेज द पाइप और प्लेस द ट्यून जे पाइप पर पैसा दिबो से जो केतेटा कहबो से सेटा को बजेबो सो वी हैव टू डांस टू द म्यूजिक द ट्यून्स ऑफ वर्ल्ड बैंक और एंड इंटरनेशनल मॉनेटरी फंड कारण से धरले तांकर टर्म्स एंड कंडीशंस को हम जदि एग्री करबानी दे शैल नॉट एक्सटेंड द लोन सो टू अवेल दिस लोन्स द कंट्री हैड टू एग्री टू पैकेज ऑफ स्टेबलाइजेशन एंड स्ट्रक्चरल एडजस्टमेंट प्रोग्राम देखंतु एनो कंट्री जोड़ा को बाध्य वाले स्ट्रक्चरल एडजस्टमेंट प्रोग्राम को अवॉइड न पाए so the ideological opposition to the policy of reform appeared to be weakest around this time. And you know, the ideological opposition to the policy of reforms appeared to be weakest, and the economic policy Margaret Thatcher in England and Ronald Reagan America represented what came to be known as rolling back the state. State को roll back करो. Economic क्षेत्र रे influential country मानकर intervention मिला. अपन धरने तो हम कैसे अपने सुनिए DIFD, उटे Department of जो तरह की direct investment हमें foreign country पाइले. अब सेमाने जो निर्दिष्ट development project में पे funding कले, से तरह कितने लोग को रोहिबे, कितने लोग को छोटे हेबे. They have dictated the terms. In India, this process of globalization, it has also impacted social movement, which have played an important role both before and after independence. Because we have in the previous class seen that how social movements that they have played a very important role prior to independence and after independence. But with the bogey of globalization, new challenges have come. So social movements they are confronted with new challenges. Some movements have taken advantage of the opportunity offered by globalization for creating international network. But at the same time, some movements have been busy fighting the negative effects of globalization. किछि किछि आंदोलन बा सामाजिक आंदोलन ग्लोबलाइजेशन रु मध्ये फायदा उठिचंती because you know they have taken advantage of the opportunities which have been offered by this globalization and they have been successful in creating international network. But some other movements they have failed in this front. They have become victims to the negative effects of globalization. You know, the challenge before globalization is that it should strengthen social cohesion, not weaken it. ସାମାଜିକ ସ୍ଥିତିରେ ଲୋକମାନଙ୍କୁ ସଂଗଠିତ କରିବା ହେଉଛି ମୁଖ୍ୟ ଉଦ୍ଦେଶ୍ୟ, ସେମାନଙ୍କୁ weaken କରିବା ପାଇଁ ନୁହେଁ, ଦୁର୍ବଳ କରିବା ପାଇଁ ନୁହେଁ. This can happen only if all the segments of the society within the countries and internationally share the benefits and perceive to the benefit. But the problem is that the political economy of the world is managed by a small number of multilateral institutions, mainly the trio of the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, and the World Trade Organization. ये तीनटा trio माने तीनटा organization जो माने कि terms dictate कले, and virtually the economy of the world was managed by this trio or these three institutions. These three institutions are, please remember, World Bank, IMF, that is International Monetary Fund, and WTO, World Trade Organization. এবং এই যে তিনটা অর্গানাইজেশন কো কো মানে ইনফ্লুয়েন্স কলে কো মানকৰ ভিতরে প্রাধান্য রহিলা the developed countries, the influential countries. So the policy of these organizations that determined by the rich industrialized countries. For example, the members of the group of 7, आपण म्हणतो group of 7, they have the influence on the policies to be determined by this trio, these three organizations. So I think there is some disturbance. So please mute कर दियंतु आपनकर एटा न टिके नॉइज आछि कोन कार गोटे एरु, there is some noise, please make it mute. So the report of the South Commission in 1992 held that inequalities tended to widen as the economy grew and became more industrialized. So instead of a cohesion, instead of bridging the gap, economic gap between the countries, it has widened it. The gap of income, the gap of knowledge and power, it was growing. Large segments of the population experienced no significant improvement in their standard of living. In income कहंतु, technology कहंतु, knowledge कहंतु, power कहंतु, सबुतरे किछि countries सेमाने dominate करिया चाहिए, एवं developing world it was receded. So the economic management by these three organizations, the World Bank, the IMF, the WTO, it has caused massive reorganization in the economy and society in developed countries, including India. So in developing countries, these high growth economic activities they have propelled by, which have been unleashed by process of globalization, they pose serious threat to their environment. So sometimes their resources are depleted in a very faster rate. So because of the competitive attitude in the world market, environment safety measures they are compromised in the higher economic growth. In developing countries माने जेतबे इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ को परसू करिया को आरंभ कले से माने एनवायरनमेंट सेफ्टी मेजर को कंप्रोमाइज कर देले, सेटा को पछकु रख देले. So all this exploitation of the renewable and non-renewable resources, it has a common aim: generating export to earning. In parts of India, environmental pollution has reached disastrous proportion. The major rivers like Ganga and Jamuna, they have become polluted. And the major cause of pollution is disposal of untreated industrial waste. Also, in industrialized areas like Vapi, Ankleshwar, Nandeshari, Baroda in Gujarat, the victims of pollution from factories and industries complain about holes in their cloth. Actually, the total atmosphere, the environment was so polluted that it has caused a lot of health hazards. But what really happened? So when the affected people, I mean the victims of this environmental hazard, they have appealed the industries. They refuse to take responsibilities. So these polluting industries, those who are responsible for polluting river water, air pollution, and all that, they refuse to take any responsibility for the people. So naturally, we shall find in most part of the country there are also environmental protest movements for conservation, for safe environment, and these movements they have been piloted by the NGOs. In the last class, I was talking about the civil society organizations. They have taken up the causes of the people. Even developing countries in the Latin America also, environmental crisis clearly demonstrate the logic of globalization under the dominance of transnational capital. So globalization with its promises of economic prosperity has also brought a lot of problems for the developing world. I think you are clear. Economic growth na rahe, environmental safety measures ଉପରେ ନଜର ଦିଆଗଲା ନାହିଁ। ସେ environmental movement ଗୁଡାକ ବହୁତ ଜାଗାରେ ହେଲା, ତାଙ୍କର ପ୍ରଥମ ଜିନିଷ ହେଉଛି safe environment, and they have tried to pressurize the government to take up the policies which have to be coupled with environmental sustainability so that they can be politically acceptable. So, as we have seen, that globalization has serious implications. It has serious implication for Indian agriculture. କାରଣ ଆମେ ଆମର ଇଣ୍ଡିଆ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଗ୍ୟାଟ୍ ବା ଜେନେରାଲ ଏଗ୍ରିମେଣ୍ଟ ଅଫ ଟ୍ରେଡ୍ ଆଣ୍ଡ ଟାରିଫ ସାଇନ୍ କରାଗଲା at Baracus in 1994, it became a part of the World Trade Organization, or WTO. So developing countries, including India, were under obligation to introduce reduction in subsidies and keep it to the 10% of the farm's value output. So farmers are terribly affected. So what really happened, a farmer is not automatically permitted to use the seeds of the protected varieties, which he has saved for sowing next crop. And as most of the plant breeders are multinational corporations, and their main motive is profit, the only option left with the farmers is to buy the seeds again. So farmers in Karnataka, they have registered their protest against this arrangement. And many NGOs, non-government organizations, civil society organizations, they have also supported the cause of the farmers. ତେଣୁ ଆମେ ଦେଖିବା ଇଣ୍ଡିଆର ବହୁତ ଜାଗାରେ ଫାର୍ମର ପ୍ରୋଟେଷ୍ଟ ଆରମ୍ଭ ହେଲା. Leaders, for example, like Mahendra Singh Tikait in north, Nanjunda Swami in the south, they lead the farmer protest, protest movement, and they are apprehensive of the negative fallout of the liberalization and the negative impact of this globalization on the agricultural sector. And also, not only that, farmers are affected. The working class also are terribly affected by this globalization. Jagatikରଣ ପ୍ରକ୍ରିୟାରେ ଯେ liberalization ଆସିଲା, privatization ହେଲା, economic reforms ହେଲା, new economic policy କରାଗଲା. Still then, not only agriculture has suffered, peasants have suffered, but also the working class. One important agenda of globalization was privatization of public sector. Among the main planks of this new economic policy are closure of the sick and loss-making public enterprises. New economic policy कौन करा गला? Sick industry बा sick public sector को close कर दिया गला. एनु तादरा कौन होला? अनेक worker retrenchment बा छोटे face कले. Closure of one factory means lot of workers they find themselves jobless. ताका हाथु job चले गला. So many people have argued that post-economic reform period has been a period of jobless growth. And as part of the stabilization and structural adjustment program, number of vacancies have come down. So there is a decline in the growth rate of total employment in the organized sector in 1990s as compared to 80s. And post-globalization period, छोटे आरंभ होला, and there is a policy of downsizing. संस्था को डाउनसाइज कर दियो, लोगों को बाहर कर दियो, अल्प मैन पावर ने काम चलाओ. Total employment rate रे, organized sector रे, there is a big fall. तापर लेबर लॉ रे मध्ये बहुत चेंज करा गला regarding the job security. A lot of changes on the grounds of economic rationality. Liberalization also meant relaxation in government control over the private sector. As a result of which, bargaining power of labor vis-a-vis capital has come down. So there have been strikes by trade unions. जब the peasant strike ହେଇଥିଲା, ସେ workers माने छोटे फेस कले सेमानकर a lot of the rate in employment rate कमिला, and trade union activities बढ़िला. So there have been strikes by trade unions to protect the interests of the workers. For example, in state electricity board, ITDC hotels, nationalized banks. So the introduction of the new economic policy, it has exposed the weaknesses of the working class movement. By globalization also, middle classes are affected, peasants are affected, Workers are affected. Middle classes of the society, they are also affected. You know, globalization ସାଙ୍ଗରେ କିଛି କିଛି opportunity ବି ଆସିଥିଲା, job opportunity, particularly upper middle class ମାନଙ୍କ ପାଇଁ. This is especially true about people having degrees from IIT, IIM, who are in big demand, both in India and world over. You know, IITs students of Indian Institute of Management, they got a lot of job opportunities because there is a big demand for this sector, both in India and also abroad. So, IIM by IIT students ଭଲ ଭଲ pay package ପାଇକିରି they have started running away. They walk away from the country. So India statistics turns out more than 70,000 computers professionals every year, in addition to the graduates from the IITs. Indian software industry employed nearly 160,000 professionals, 1,60,000 professionals in 1998-99. And Indian software industry actually has earned a big name, a very good name worldwide. ଅନେକ students ସେଇ ସବୁ ସଂସ୍ଥାର ସେମାନେ ଭଲ pay package ରେ they have also found out big job opportunity in other countries, in the foreign countries. Why this development has created tremendous job opportunities in India? It has been used by foreign companies as a cost-cutting arrangement. And you know, the back office operations range from billing to payroll handling, airline reservation to answering customer complaint. Everywhere there is this application of IT. In case of both these kinds of jobs, whether in the much famed IT sector or the call center students coming from upper middle class and urban background, they're more likely to get these jobs. So some people argue that apart from demanding reservation also in the private sector, the movement of the disadvantaged section should exert pressure on the government to improve the quality of education in government managed institutions. So the people from the disadvantaged sections, they do not have the means to afford quality education offered at higher prices in elite schools, and it meant for a well-off sections of the society. So what happened? The introduction of this new economic policy, it has marginalized a large section of the population as they do not have the necessary skills to benefit from the opportunities offered by globalization. ग्लोबलाइजेशन जो अपॉर्चुनिटी ऑफर करतुला ताको ठीक से यूटिलाइज करिवार जो स्किल रो आवश्यकता इट वाज नॉट विथ देम सेक्शन. So there is great opportunity here for channeling political activism in the direction of forcefully demanding expansion of basic education, healthcare, and social security for those who are left out of this system. Then also women are affected. So this is the impact of globalization middle classes, so far as particularly so far as its impact on IT sector, etc. is concerned. How women are affected? You know, the exigencies of the competition and market, they're used to enforce policies which aim at profit making at the expense of people and the planet. Feminists, women leaders all over the world, they have come to reject the profit-based market system, which compels private ownership of all the arts, goods, and recognize only those things as valuable, which can be bought and sold for profit. ତେଣୁ ସେମାନେ ପ୍ରଫିଟ୍ ନା ଅନ୍ୟ କୌଣସି କନସିଡରେସନ ରଖୁନଥିଲେ. And this type of market, it does not value the work of nature and women. So feminists in the developed countries, they are fighting for recognition of the value of the goods and services produced by them to whom? ଆପଣ ଫେମିନିଜମ ଯୋଉମାନଙ୍କର ଆଇଡିଆ ଅଛି ପଢିଛନ୍ତି, ସେମାନେ ସେମାନେ କହୁଥିଲେ ଯେ ଆମ ସର୍ଭିସ ଆମେ ଯୋଉଟା ଏକ୍ସଟେଣ୍ଡ କରୁଛୁ ସୋସାଇଟି କି ତାର ପ୍ରପର ଭ୍ୟାଲ୍ୟୁ ଦିଆଯାଇ ପାରୁନାହିଁ. So they have demanded through struggle that the services of the women in various fields, both in the home front and also in the societal front, must be recognized. They are also fighting for men's equal participation in work. They demand recognition of the value of the social support provided by women in the form of child care, health, educational services. So virtually they said that women are engaged in invisible work, the work which are not recognized properly by the society. So the phenomenon of or the event of globalization, its commitment to commercialization, modernization, export-oriented development, growing reliance on private sector, and other obsessions with the profit motive, it has adversely affected the cause of women in India also. So most of the social movements are generally preoccupied with their own particular struggle. They are gripped with the mindset of our movement or their movement, like that. So this is a virtually exclusiveness. I mean, the rank and file or the leaders of one movement, they say that this is our movement, by distinguishing them from others by saying that it is their movement. So there was a need of networking and coordination. The environment movements and anti-WTO movements, they have demonstrated global networking and coordination. ବିଭିନ୍ନ ମୁଭମେଣ୍ଟ ଭିତରେ ଗୋଟେ କୋର୍ଡିନେସନର ଆବଶ୍ୟକତା ଫିଲ୍ କଲେ. Some scholars, they are of the view that social movements are increasingly going global in the response to the new liberal economics. The programs and political policies which have impact on lives of people, they are not exclusively in the hands of the national governments. So this necessitates networking and coordination among social movements on the global level. And coordination ରହିଲେ What is the main objective of the social movement? To give pressure on the policymakers so that congenial right type of policies can be made. But if there is no coordination among various protest groups or various movements, then the proper results cannot be yielded. So this necessitates networking and coordination among social movements on global level so that they can be in a position to bargain for a better deal. The communication revolution, which has accompanied globalization, has created a situation in which any form of movement in any part of the globe can easily attract attention of the global community. ଆମ କମ୍ୟୁନିକେସନ ସ୍ପିୟରରେ ଆମର ଏତେ ଡେଭଲପମେଣ୍ଟ ହେଇଛି ଯେ ୱାର୍ଲଡର ଗୋଟେ କୋଣରେ ଥିବା ସୋସିଆଲ ମୁଭମେଣ୍ଟ ମଧ୍ୟ ଯଦି ଚାହିଁବ ୱାର୍ଲଡର ଅନ୍ୟ କୌଣସି ଫାର୍ଦେଷ୍ଟ କୋଣରେ ମଧ୍ୟ ଯୋଉ ମୁଭମେଣ୍ଟର ସେମାନଙ୍କ ସାଙ୍ଗରେ ସେ ତାର ର୍ୟାପୋ ବା ତାର କୋପରେସନ କୋର୍ଡିନେସନଟାକୁ ଏଷ୍ଟାବ୍ଲିଶ କରିପାରିବ. Communication skill has been so developed and public opinion worldwide can be created because of the communication technology. ଆଗରୁ କଣ ହଉଥିଲା ଗୋଟେ ଗୋଟେ ଗାଁର ଖବର ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ ଗାଁକୁ ବି ଯାଇପାରୁନଥିଲା. ଗୋଟେ ଚିଠି ଆପଣ ଯଦି ପଠେଇବେ ସେ 7 ଦିନ ପରେ ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ ଗାଁରେ ଯାଇ ପହଞ୍ଚୁଥିଲା. ବଟ୍ ଇଟ୍ସ ନଟ୍ ନାଉ. ଆମର ଏଇ ମୋବାଇଲ ଇଣ୍ଟରନେଟ ଫେସବୁକ୍ ବିଭିନ୍ନ କମ୍ୟୁନିକେସନ ସ୍କିଲ୍ ମାଧ୍ୟମରେ the whole world is within your palms. Any information you can want, you can have it within a fraction of a second. ତେଣୁ ଗୋଟେ ରିଭଲ୍ୟୁସନ ବା ଗୋଟେ ମୁଭମେଣ୍ଟ ଯଦି ଚାହୁଁଛି ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ସେ ତାର କୋର୍ଡିନେସନ ବା ତାର କୋପରେସନଟା ମଧ୍ୟ ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ ମୁଭମେଣ୍ଟ ଯୋଉଟା କି ୱାର୍ଲଡ ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ ପ୍ରାନ୍ତରରେ ଚାଲିଛି ତା ସହିତ ମଧ୍ୟ କୋର୍ଡିନେସନ ସ୍ଥାପନ କରିପାରିବ. And that is required. If coordination is established among various revolutions groups or protest groups, then that can yield proper result. They can bargain for a better future. So because of the increased international network of activities for human rights, transnational collective action has increased. International pressure again, for example, Gujarat communal violence, support for the Narma Bachao Andolan, environmental movement, that's some of the examples that how collective action has been increased and also support base has been created. विशेष कर आप देखो एबे एनवायरमेंटल मूवमेंट जो होची those are worldwide because they have no national border. Because pollution in one corner of this world can affect the very cleanliness in air or water in other part of the world. It is interconnected. It is global village. So the issues like human rights, environment preservation, women rights, rights for the backward sections of society, they have provided the common platform where most of the movements can extend their joint effort or they have a proper coordinating activity. Now, I have a brief discussion on the changing nature of the Indian society. So, the connection between the state, market, and social movements are to be appreciated. the very movement, the trajectory of the state in India during the post-independent period can be divided in two phases for the purpose of understanding the relationship to the market and social movements. State, market और social movement भितर जो relationship which can be studied in post-independent India in two phases. ଗୋଟେ ହେଉଛି 1990 ପୂର୍ବରୁ ଆଉ 1990 ପରେ virtually ଗୋଟେ pre globalization period ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ ହେଉଛି post globalization 1990s pre before that and also post 1990 and the phase preceding the present form of liberalization and coinciding with. During the past 2 decades following independence in India, I am talking about India, the state was given a dominant place in development model. The national and international circumstances which prevailed at the time, it has necessitated to accord such a position to the state. State must be given a dominant position. Immediately after independence, what is the most important issue? Nation building. No, आमे जदि state रो हाथ को strong कर न करबा, हमर nation building the process shall be affected. So, सेही समय रो prevailing circumstances had virtually made the state more powerful. It has given the state a dominant position in the development model. And in international sphere, you know, there are two ideological opposite blocks like American and the Russian bloc. And they are involved in Cold War. Se samare international sphere re Sitalo Yudha chalta jaho amaro India we have steered clear between the two blocks. You know, amaro we are a member of the non-alignment movement. We didn't side any particular camp. And founded at the initiative of the then Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru and one development economist, his PC Mahalanobis. Nehru Mahalanobis development model accept karagala in the first few years after independence. Nehru thile Prime Minister এবং PC Mahalanobis হচ্ছেন development economist. This model is called Nehru Mahalanobis model of development. A model, it has sought to build India a strong nation state, showing the unity of diverse regional, economic, cultural groups. This model, it envisages that it would lead to overall development of the country. And they say that if this model can be pursued, it can eliminate the difference and hierarchy based on social privileges, caste, religion, language, race, region के भीतर जो तारतम्य disparity अच्छी. By pursuing this Nehru Mahalanobis model, that can be minimized. In the macroeconomy, it gave preference to the industry over the agriculture or rural sector. The period from the late 1960s till 1980s, it saw the deinstitutionalization and personalization of the state machinery, especially during the reign of Indira Gandhi. With some interruption, this phase continued till 1980s. इस समय emergency declare ହେଇଥିଲା. More than 4 years rule at the center by different non-Congress political formations like Janata Dal government and the government headed by Charan Singh and also Chandrasekhar. So the decline of the state institutions, which started during the prime ministership of Indira Gandhi, continued even during the later regimes. This is the experience, Indian experience from 1980s to 1990s. What about the post 1990s? That is the era of globalization, liberalization. It has seen the decline in the state authority because in the economic sphere, state has restricted back, rolled back policy. And also there is introduction of this structural adjustment programs, which was introduced by Nursing Rao government in 1991. So this phase is marked by parallel rise in the market force and also the emergence of the civil society organizations. And they have tried to question the monopoly of the state. So the state of civil society mark very well. What is a civil society? It is on the space unoccupied by state. So during this phase after 1990s, there is the emergence of these civil society organizations, and this emergence of the civil society and all that, it has eroded the state monopoly. And there is changing status of the market. The market was given secondary position in the policy formulation in relation to the state, particularly before liberalization phase. Market not only had to depend on the state leadership and bureaucracy. For instance, license or operate under the inspector Raj, and it also had no major role in measures meant for various sections of society. And during this pre-liberalization era, market had to face the corruption, lack of transparency, red tapeism. So virtually in this front, state has failed. So this has brought to prominence the role of the state in the process of democratization, governance, and development. And there is a search for the alternative to the state as an agency for carrying out development and democracy. And democratic process started. You know, this was not the trend only in India. This trend was also seen world over, worldwide. The Western world also, with the new liberal ideology and through the institutions like the World Bank, IMF, played a leading role to propagate the ideas which are taken to be panacea or the medicines to the problems of the third world to be found in the state in these countries rolled back, or they became minimalist state. State को minimalist state concept has come up, and structural reforms were introduced in these countries. So this was true both for the developed countries and also for the developing countries. And added to this, the developing countries, they have also faced another type of problem, that is the crisis of governance. like violence, corruption, lack of transparency, financial instability, insecurity. In case of India, by the 1980s, the financial problems, mainly the balance of payment, had become very acute. So, virtually, India had no other way to go but to go for a loan from international donor agencies like IMF, World Bank, whatever it may be. And the structural reforms, in a sense, became euphemism for the market. The indicators of these are removal of the tariff, non-tariff barriers within the country and also outside the country. The reaction to the market is also divided. If there are supporters of the market forces, there are also opponents of the market forces. And the opponents to these market forces, they are leftist intellectuals and organizations. Swadeshis, those are opposed to the foreign products, foreign markets. Then the section of the Dalits spokesperson. So the changes in the status of the state and the market, they have occurred in a new context. And the changes which took place in this context are decline of the Cold War, disintegration of the socialist bloc in 1980s, Russia, USSR ର decline ହେଲା, the regime, communist regime almost virtually a fall. Then the rise of civil society organizations, NGOs, voluntary organizations, they have come up. So in this is the context in which the changes have occurred, both in the state and also in the market. There is a growing significance of the civil society. ଆପଣଙ୍କର civil society ଦେଖନ୍ତୁ importance ଟା କେମିତି ବଢିଲା. You must be knowing Anna Hazare, for example, the movements or the agitation started under his leadership, like your introduction of the Jan Lokpal bill and all that. You must have gone through those particular literature. So there is the growing significance of the civil society, which are existing along with the state and market, working either independently or in collaboration with them. And along with this civil society, the concept like social capital, it has also come to occupy important place in the academic discourse. You must have heard about the name of Robert Putnam. While popularizing the tradition of what is known as the civic tradition in Italy, the social capital is supposed to consist of networking, trust, and shared values among the members of a group. which possess the social capital. So, what does it denote? Robert Putnam actually social capital, it denotes existence of associations among its members. And as social movements are collective actions, with organizations, with their leadership, with its ideology, policies and strategies of mobilization, associations also have become important part of social movement. Of course, this concepts like civil society organization by social capital को मध्य अनेक criticize by challenge କରିଛନ୍ତି. They have not gone unchallenged. For example, one of the critics, John Harris, he argues that social capital depoliticizes development. It is one of the arguments against the social capital. Existence of the civil society, social capital, and social movements. They are considered to be indicative of the existence of democracy in a section of the contemporary discourses. So, questions can be put like this. Are these social movements related to the changing status of the state and market, or are they related to globalization? Like on the status of the state and market, there are also opposite opinions on the relationship between the globalization and social movement. Some scholars they argue that the social movements, especially the new social movement, along with the rise of identity movement, have emerged as the result of globalization. Identity movement विषय में हमें काली और पे बहुत कही ethnicity, for example, even Dalit movement, tribal movement, these are identity movements. Those are all new social movements fighting for identity. Some marginalized groups try to assert their existence. So some scholars say that there is a relationship between these identity movements and globalization. But also, there have been collective actions of different groups even before globalization. You know, ଆଉ କିଛି ଗୋଷ୍ଠୀର critics କଲେ that globalization ସହିତ ଯେ ଗୋଟେ concomitant feature, it is not always the truth. କାରଣ globalization 1990s ରେ ଆସିଲା. Identity movements they have also pre-existed. ତା ପୂର୍ବରୁ ମଧ୍ୟ ଅନେକ identity movements ଥିଲା. ତେଣୁ ଆମେ ସବୁବେଳେ ଭାବିବା ଠିକ ନୁହେଁ ଯେ that is a direct relationship between the emergence of the identity movement and globalization, because they have pre-existed. Globalization ଆସିବା ଆଗରୁ ମଧ୍ୟ ଅନେକ identity movement ହେଇଛି. Therefore, it is not always possible to relate social movements to globalization. But if we place the issues and collective actions of various groups in the context of changes in the political economy, including the globalization, it can help us understanding the social movements better. That's right. You know, globalization jogu je identity movements like ଆସିଛି ବା it's the cause or effect doesn't matter. But if the broader canvas of globalization can be taken into consideration, or we can place these issues and collective action of the various groups in context of the changes in the political economy, including globalization, then we can better understand the very nature and dimension of various movements. So the relationship of the social movements with the state and market can at best be seen in certain ways. One, the state's ability to meet the aspiration of the people and their representation in the state agencies or organs, and also their representation within the markets, and also its ability to give the people what the state has been unable to do. So the while mobilization of to the 19 and the period 1960s had been done mainly by political parties or organizations related to them. After 1970s, different social groups came up to mobilize. ତେଣୁ ସିକ୍ସଟିଜ୍ ପର୍ଯ୍ୟନ୍ତ ପଲିଟିକାଲ ପାର୍ଟି ମାନେ ବା ଯୋଉ ଅର୍ଗାନାଇଜେସନ ଗୁଡାକ ପଲିଟିକାଲ ପାର୍ଟି ତ ଜଡିତ ସେମାନେ ବିଶେଷ କରି ମେନଲି ମୋବିଲାଇଜେସନ ମୁଭମେଣ୍ଟ ଗୁଡାକରେ ପାର୍ଟିସିପେଟ କରୁଥିଲେ କିନ୍ତୁ ଆଫ୍ଟର ଦ୍ୟାଟ୍ वी फाइंड since 1970s different social groups they have also come up to mobilize by the non party or apolitical organizations. So this is a very big observation. Then non party organization madhya mobilization movement re 1970 ପରେ participate kale. So there have been collective action in India before and after independence. The relationship to the state and market can be seen in the context of their changing status. And within a few years of the introduction of our constitution, after we got independence, there are collective actions of different groups which challenged the Indian state. And since 1970s onwards, there has been addition to these movements in terms of more social groups which are apolitical. They are not necessarily political in nature or they are not affiliated to any political parties. So these movements might not have been caused directly due to action of the state and market. They are changing in nature and status. They have provided a context to interpret and to comprehend the social movements in our country. If we can come to certain particular movements, in recent years, we are listening much about Dalit politics, Dalit movement, and also a lot of academic interests have also grown. So let us also think in terms of some of the movements like first the Dalit movement. And there is more of academic discussion on Dalit movement because there has been greater mobilization and political participation of Dalits in electoral process in the country as a whole. And particularly the party that is, you must have heard, Bahujan Samaj Party, BSP, which in fact is responsible for the mobilization of the Dalits and the democratic upsurge of the Dalits in the country. So first of all, let us say who are Dalits. Dalit is a Marathi, originally it's a Marathi term. And literally it means ground or broken to pieces. And this word Dalit was popularized by one organization called Dalit Panthers in Maharashtra. And mostly it meant the scheduled caste population. And later on, there had been attempts to broaden this definition to any oppressed group. Gradually, definition scope टाको बढ़ाई दिया गया and other depressed classes they have been also included. But originally it was a Marathi term including which only mean a smaller group of Dalits, mostly known as, and this was popularized by a group called Dalit Panthers in Maharashtra. But now the very definition of Dalit also encompasses a lot more depressed classes like scheduled caste populations of the country. And previously they were considered untouchables because in the Varnashrama system, they are not included into four Varnas like Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Sudras. They are left out of this Varnashrama system. So in the Hindu Varnashram, they were outside this Varna system. Caste system of Varna system ର ସେମାନେ ଭିତରେ ଅନ୍ତର୍ଭୁକ୍ତ ହୋଇନଥିଲେ in the ancient Hindu tradition. And they are known as Avarnas, or they are also known as Atisudras. And our Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra. So they were actually termed to be Atisudras or Avarnas because they are not included in the Varnashram system. So virtually, there are even some people, those who include this scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, other backward classes, and even other converted minorities into this category gradually. You know, a category gradually other sections of the society they have been included. So the Dalit constitute around 15% of Indian population, belong to the lower rungs of the Indian society, economically and socially. The Dalits not only belong to the lower caste category, but also belong to the lower class category. Can it have a sociology part actually? So not only in the caste cadre, but also so far as the class is concerned, also they belong to the lowest class category. So both caste category and class category. They are mostly poor peasants, sharecroppers, agricultural laborers in the rural economy. In the urban economy, they basically for the bulk of the laboring population. Likewise, you shall find a lot of, literature regarding uh, the description of the population and all that. And as a result of the policy of protective discrimination, an elite, mainly middle class, it has emerged among the Dalits. So among the Dalits also elite section they have emerged. And it is these elite who have been then beneficiaries of these state policies. As a result of the changes in this entire Dalit population, may now be divided roughly into two sections. A section of the Dalits who have remained as they were earlier, and a small and narrow section who are relatively better off than the majority of the Dalit population. And political mobilization of the Dalit population it has started at all India level. B.R. Ambedkar, Baba Sahib Ambedkar initiated the articulation of the Dalit interest for the first time in 1920s. Prior to Ambedkar, also there have been attempts to bring about reforms in the conditions of the Dalits. For example, Jyotira Phule in Maharashtra. But it was an attempt towards reform rather than towards mobilization. Phule, etc., they have tried to reform. But some sociologists they say that that is not one attempt of mobilization. It is a reform attempt. So, basically, Ambedkar is known to have developed differences with Congress on several important questions relating to Dalit issues, and more or less remained the only spokesperson and the preeminent advocate of the Dalits from 1919 for more than 3.5 decades in pre-independence period. Because of his leadership, Dalits could get justice in all the fronts, social, economic, and political. You know, All India Scheduled Caste Federation was formed in 1942. Then the particular organization have started thinking in terms of protecting the interest of the scheduled castes. In the post-independent period, the formation of AISCF, that is All India Scheduled Caste Federation, was a very significant development in the history of mobilization in the country. By the mid 1960s, you know, there is a lot of development in this mobilization of the Dalits. And in 1956, AISCF was dissolved, and the Republican Party of India, that is RPI, it was formed in 1957. And the party, that is RPI, the Republican Party of India, first of its kind, accepted the fundamental provision of the Constitution and vowed to pursue its objective through the medium of parliamentarian democracy. So I should have I mean, this is a brief history as to how the Dalit mobilization has come up. I think the discussion shall be incomplete unless we have a reference to the Bahujan Samaj Party. BSP was formed by Kansiram. It was in 1984. And it has marked a new beginning in the history of Dalit mobilization and politics in the country. One of the significant features of BSP happened with the fact that it had succeeded at least partially in North India, where Ambedkar and Ambedkarites they have failed in their objective in the country. BSP succeeded at a time in North India when the Dalit parties in Western India were on a disarray. And after its formation, Bahujan Samaj Party not only succeeded in establishing a stronghold in some states in North India, but it has also been able to form governments along with pre or post-electoral allies in the critical, very important states like Uttar Pradesh. So, having set this stage and the ground, Kansiram inaugurated the BSc on the 14th of April 1984, and he acquired a useful partner when he persuaded Mayawati to join the party in Uttar Pradesh. And joining of Mayawati in Uttar Pradesh became very crucial for BSP because with this the party was able to get a solid leader in the state. So this is a brief history and its leaders, and definitely it has gone long way in mobilizing the in political mobilization of the Dalit in the country, and they could assert and also could win elections in the states. What about the ideology of BSP? It has to be understood in the background of the overall effect made towards mobilization of the Dalits since the national movement in India. It must be noted that the beginning, its ideology has been shifting from time to time according to its needs. The sole thrust is on breaking the caste system. So ideological system को प्रथम attack किया caste system को break करा जाए after acquiring state power. What is however true is that it has no economic program as such, and hence the party is not clear what it intends to do after acquiring power. ତେଣୁ ତାର ଅନ୍ୟ କୌଣସି ଇକୋନୋମିକ ପ୍ରୋଗ୍ରାମ ନଥିବ ପାୱାର ଆସିଲା ପରେ ଯେ କଣ କରାଯିବ ସେ ବିଷୟରେ ସେମାନେ ଏତେ କ୍ଲିୟର କଟ୍ ପ୍ରୋଗ୍ରାମ ଉପସ୍ଥାପନ କରିପାରିନଥିଲେ. So we shall find, because there is no economic program as such, and hence the party is not clear what it intends to do after acquiring power. It is because of this ideological vagueness one finds that most of the agitations are symbolic in nature. And secondly, because of this, it had vacillated on economic issues after acquiring power in the states like Uttar Pradesh. But ideologically, that is why it is very, difficult to dissect the ideologies of this party because of this vagueness. But some of the leaders' opinion can be taken. In Kansiram's opinion, the Brahminical social order that exists in Aryan in its origin, and they have evolved this social order so this caste structure is mainly responsible for Dalit exploitation. So it is from this assessment of this Indian social order, like caste structure, Varnashram and all that, that they construct their objective and strategy. The main aim is to end and destroy Brahminical rule and dominance, and to attain political power for the Bahujanas. So attainment or capture of political power is the key to them. And according to Kansiram, political power is the master key with which you can open any lock, whether it is social or educational or cultural lock. So attainment of political power is central to their strategy by which any transformation can be made. And also that can help in the economic advancement of the Bahujanas. So Bahujan Samaj Party always considers the democracy a fake democracy where upper caste people they dominate. That is not the real democracy. So definitely, so far as the justice for the Dalit is concerned, leaders like Ambedkar, they have done a lot of contribution in this field. Those who have brought economic, social, and political justice for the Dalits in our country. So he had his main architect of the Indian Constitution and a lot of provisions for the improvement of the downtrodden. It has been made possible because of the attempts of leaders like Ambedkar. with this also, with Dalit movement, there are also other backward class movements. Who are the backward classes? I mean, technically, who are the Dalits? Originally, it is a Marathi term and Dalit Panther. It has popularized the term Dalit. Likewise, we can put a question that who are then the other backward classes? One sociologist, Mark Galanter, he has written a book, Competing Inequalities, Law and the Backward Classes in India. He had given some observations. He observed that backward classes is a very loose concept. Sociologically, these classes consist of a large number of the backward castes, which remain above the scheduled castes and below the upcastes. देखो तांको position किनको रहिଛି above the scheduled caste but below the upper castes. They have been positioned. And these castes consist of intermediate castes like the cultivating caste, artisans, service castes. So, in the traditional social and economic structure, while the intermediary castes were involved in the production process in the land, the service castes and artisans provided services to the society. So the backward classes known as also the other backward class. I mean, OBC ବୋଲି କହୁଛୁ. They are other than those backward classes which include the Dalits, scheduled castes, and scheduled tribes. You know, Dalits, SCs, and STs. These OBCs are not coming under their category. They are being placed by some sociologists between the upper castes and these SC, STs, and the Dalits. So, for example, the principal intermediary OBCs are Jadavs, Kurmis, Puris, Gujars, Jatho in North Indian states like Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Rajasthan, etc. And also some parts of Haryana and Madhya Pradesh. Then Kapus, Kamaz, Redis, Lingayats, Mudliyas in southern states like Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, etc. So sociologists they have categorized these groups as the OBCs in North India and also in South India. So the OBCs in fact include heterogeneous caste groups with the differences in their social and economic conditions and political participation. Even the other backward classes which share common characteristics in terms of their place in the social hierarchy, they differ from each other depending on their agrarian history. You know, OBC ଟା ଗୋଟେ heterogeneous group. ବିଭିନ୍ନ ଷ୍ଟେଟରେ ସେମାନଙ୍କର ଇକୋନୋମିକ କଣ୍ଡିସନ ବା ସେମାନଙ୍କର ଲେଭେଲ ଅଫ ପଲିଟିକାଲ ପାର୍ଟିସିପେସନ ଦ୍ୟାଟ୍ ଭ୍ୟାରିଜ୍. So the Jats in most part of UP, Punjab, which also consisted of the area present day Haryana and Bharatpur region of Rajasthan, they were a dominant community even in the pre-independent period. They had their own traditional caste councils headed by the hereditary chiefs or Chaudhuri to manage their juridical and also social affairs. ସେମାନଙ୍କର caste organization ତାଙ୍କର chief ଅଛନ୍ତି ସେମାନେ ତାଙ୍କର they enjoy their own traditional dominance and jurisdiction. So what is our thrust is the impact of the socio-economic conditions of the backward classes on the state policies. କାରଣ ଆପଣ ଦେଖିବେ ଦଲିତ ମୁଭମେଣ୍ଟ କୁହନ୍ତୁ ପଲିସିସ୍ କୁହନ୍ତୁ ଓବିସି ପଲିସି କୁହନ୍ତୁ they have a tremendous impact on state policy because the backward classes they emerge as a very powerful social, economic and political bloc during the post-independent period in the country. So their demands and interests cannot be ignored at all. It must be emphasized that among the state policies, it was the Green Revolution which had the most remarkable impact on the rural economic, social and political life. Most of the groups affected by this belong to the upper backward classes. So it not only disturbed the traditional patterns of relation, it also gives rise to the emergence of the capitalism in agriculture. So it's a fact that OBCs or other backward classes, they belong to the distinct economic categories and to the middle castes, the artisans, the service caste. And these groups, they have given rise to the issues which are both economic and also caste related, I mean sociological issues. Another factor which is related to the changes in the socio-economic condition of the OBCs is rise of the middle class among the OBCs. See, OBC ଭିତରେ ମଧ୍ୟ middle class ମଧ୍ୟ ଧୀରେ ଧୀରେ emerge କଲେ. And in spite of the failure of the education policy, a group of educated persons who became their spokesperson, ତାଙ୍କ ଭିତରେ ଯୋଉମାନେ slightly educated ହେଲେ, ସେମାନେ ସେମାନଙ୍କର spokesperson ହେଲେ. They plead for the causes of the OBCs and had emerged among the backward classes as leaders and the spokesperson. However, this group was not so big as it was among the high castes. For example, in North India, Charan Singh, SD Singh Chaurasia, Chaudhary Brahma Prakash, they are some of the spokespersons of the backward classes belonging to the early decades immediately after independence. They became the spokesperson of the other backward class sections of their region. So in the post-independent period, studies have been made to compare the backward class movements in different regions of the country. For example, there is north-south comparison. In comparison to the North India, the backward classes in South India, they are mobilized much earlier. So the backward classes in South India, they not only got reservation in government jobs much earlier, but they are also mobilized into social movements and entered politics in South India much before. Comparison kale North India re political participation by mobilization ଟା South India ର OBC ଙ୍କ ଅପେକ୍ଷା ପରେ ହେଇଛି. So some of the studies have been made. One scholar I can give reference, Christophe Jaffrelot. ସେ ଗୋଟେ ବହି ଲେଖିଛନ୍ତି India's silent revolution, the rise of the low castes in North Indian politics. He attributes the early rise of the backward classes in South India and their late rise in North India. ତେଣୁ South India ରେ ସେମାନଙ୍କର mobilization was earlier. So through ethnicization, the backward classes of South India questioned the Brahminical dominance and they sought to replace it with that of the backward classes or Dravidians. But in contrast, in North India, backward classes, they were undergoing the process of Sanskritization. Unlike their counterparts in South India, they attempted to follow the customs, habits, and rituals of the high caste. Sanskritization process ଟା ଆପଣ ଜାଣିଛନ୍ତି ତାର ଅର୍ଥ ହେଉଛି ଗୋଟେ member of the lower caste group they try to emulate the lifestyle of the members of the higher caste. By that way, they are not going to change their caste identity, but they can have a lifestyle being pursued by the members of the higher caste group. That is called the process of Sanskritization. M.N. Srinivas was a sociologist. He was done a lot of work in this process. You know, South India Brahminical dominance को attack करके ସେମାନେ कहते Dravidian dominance को अणाଯାଏ. In contrast, in North India, the members of the OBC they are still pursuing Sanskritization. I mean, they try to follow the customs, the habits, the rituals pursued by the members of the higher caste group. ତାର ତ ସେମାନେ higher caste group ଟାକୁ ସମ୍ପୂର୍ଣ୍ଣ ଭାବରେ ତାଙ୍କର dominance କୁ reject କରୁନଥିଲେ. This is the difference. Very, very important distinction. So the scholars have explained these differences between the North and South India. The Brahmins had monopolized the high caste's domination over the low castes in South India. Their number in comparison to the Brahmins of North India was much smaller. In contrast, the Brahmins were not the only high castes in North India. In North India, their domination over the low castes were also shared by other high caste groups like Rajputs, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, etc. The backward classes virtually were the non-Brahmins classes in South India, unlike their counterparts in North India. They did not attempt to follow the high castes, that is Brahmins. So the most effective expression of the Dravidian revolt against the Brahminical domination in South was provided by the self-respect movement. You know, this self-respect movement you must have heard, it was led by E.V. Ramaswamy Naikar. During 1920s and 1940s. This is called self-respect movement led by E.V. Ramaswamy Naikar. And the main principle of this movement was Samdharma or equality. They demanded equal footing with the upper caste people. In order to get their self-respect, and non-Brahmins should replace the dominance of the Brahmins in education, in culture, in politics, in administration. And we talk about self-respect movement. See, movement they boycott the Brahmins in rituals like weddings, etc. And they discard Manusmruti. And also, in some other parts also there is this OBC movements and all that. In Maratha, princes like Maharaja Baroda, descendant of Shivaji, Maharaja of Kolhapur, Sahu, inspired by the philosophy of Jyotirao Phule, challenged also Brahminical dominance in Maharashtra. Side by side with this mobilization, also there is electoral mobilization. The backward class politics in India has largely been related to electoral mobilization, creation of support base among the OBCs by the political parties and leaders so that they can contest election, win election and all that. The main leaders and political parties which mobilized the backward classes in North India, they are Charan Singh, Karpuri Thakur, and also different political formation at different points of time like Samajwadi Party, Rashtriya Janata Dal in Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. This is electoral mobilization. Just not social equality, social justice. Also in politics, they try to build candidates, win the election and all that. So there are not many examples also in South and all that. And finally, the most important part is politics of reservation. The introduction of the Mandal Commission report will be very relevant in this context. The report by VP Singh's government in 1990, recommending reservation 27% reservation for the OBCs in the central government jobs, made the reservation a national issue in Indian politics. The appointment of Mandal Commission by the Janata Party government in 1990 was the result of the pressure of the backward classes leadership and their crowd. So the demand for reservation for the backward classes, it was raised in the Constituent Assembly by Punjab Rao Deshmukh, like Dr. B.R. Ambedkar also had raised the similar demand for scheduled castes. So, in order to articulate the reservation issue for the backward classes, he founded All India Backward Classes Federation, AIBCF, in the month of January 1950. So, Mandal Commission, institution of the Mandal Commission was a result of the consistent demand by the backward classes and the leaders of the backward classes to get the Kaka Kalekar commissions and first backward class commission report accepted. Prathama backward class commission was Kaka Kalekar. So the Kaka Kalekar commission was also the result of the demand for such commissions by the backward classes leadership at the time of independence. So politics of reservation definitely has a pivotal place so far as the national politics is concerned. So this is, we have covered some part of the Dalit politics, Dalit movements, then also the other backward class movements, then also some references we can make within 15-20 minutes about ethnic movements. Basically ethnic movement with reference to tribals. Ethnic, basically tribal belt ethnic groups ରହିଛନ୍ତି. You know, what are ethnic group movement? First of all, we should understand what we understand by ethnicity. I mean, ethnicity always denotes an identification of a group of people on the basis of criteria, a marker. Say marker kono culture, race, language, religion, custom, history, economic experiences, etc. These are the markers. ତାମାନେ ଗୋଟେ ନିର୍ଦ୍ଦିଷ୍ଟ ଏଥନିକ୍ ଗ୍ରୁପର ମେମ୍ବର ମାନଙ୍କର ଗୋଟେ ଏକା କଲଚର ବେସରୁ ଆସିଥିବେ, ଏକା ହିଷ୍ଟ୍ରି, କମନ ହିଷ୍ଟ୍ରି ଥିବ, କମନ ଇକୋନୋମିକ ଏକ୍ସପେରିଏନ୍ସ ଥିବ, they must be pursuing common customs and all that. So for a group of people to share such attributes, another requirement is that they get mobilized into some collective action for attainment of certain demands. So the number of these markers or attributes which form the basis of an ethnic group depends on the choice of these factors by ethnic groups of its leadership. So this is broadly speaking what is ethnic group. Ethnic group ର member ମାନଙ୍କର common culture, religion, ଗୋଟେ economic experience, common history, customs ସେମାନଙ୍କ ଭିତରେ ଥିବ. Ethnicity is a relative term. କାରଣ ଗୋଟେ ethnic group ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ ethnic group ରୁ ମଧ୍ୟ differentiate କରାଯାଇ ପାରିବ. One ethnic group differentiates itself from another group which also shares certain attributes which are different from it. You know, this is also an identity movement. Ethnic movement गुड़ाक स्टडी करने जेमती आमर theory कहतु political comparative politics कहतु various approaches have been made. Some approaches which are used specifically to study the ethnic movements. The most commonly used approach is study of the ethnic movements are the primordial approach, instrumentalist approach, the approach which combines the features of primordial and instrumentalist. Primordial approach it holds that the basis of the formation of the ethnic group are given. There are traits of the ethnic group which are inherited by them. So that's one inherited. They are given to them through culture, language, common custom, religion. किंतु instrumentalist approach कहउचंदी जे ethnic groups they are the creation of the leadership or the elites belonging to the groups. You know, primordial approach कहउचंदी ethnicity is a given attribute, whereas the instrumentalist approach जो advocate माने are सपक्षरे they say that ethnicity is something which has been created by the leaders of the group, by the elites of the group. So the differences in the language, in culture, in the custom, in economic conditions of the people, the social cleavages, they are manipulated by the elites of the group or the leaders of the ethnic group. So this is the main difference between primordial and instrumentalist. And some other approach is there. But a third approach, the protagonist mani kondi jo no, neither of the approach is all proof. I mean, foolproof. It can be studied by taking the attributes both from the primordial approach and also from the instrumentalist approach. So they are both real and imagined reasons for the formation of ethnic movements and generation of the ethnic movements. Almost all the major regions of the country, they have witnessed ethnic movements. They take the forms of movement for regional autonomy, for creation of separate states, demand for secession or insurgency. These manifestations of ethnic movements are also called what is called self-determination movements. And in several cases, ethnic movements give rise to conflicts or riots on the lines of ethnic divide basis. And these are based on some markers like tribes, caste, language, religion. And these self-determination movements, or these type of ethnic movements, they question the very nation-state building model. जोटा कि इंडिपेंडेंट इंडिया जस्ट आफ्टर वी गेट इंडिपेंडेंस जो नेशनल बिल्डिंग एक्टिविटी आरंभ होइतिला. This self-determination movement, they actually question this nation building activity. आमे जोटा बर्तन कहउतले नेहरूवियन मॉडल बा महालनोबिस मॉडल, presumed that the course of development of modernization, the identities formed on the basis of ascriptive factors like language, caste, tribe, religion, they will disappear and the development will take place. But much before the effect of this model could be felt, it was questioned on all these major considerations language, region, nationality. So, although the ethnic movements they started with the demand based on single marker like language or culture, they drew support of the people who shared more than one attribute in a particular region. So, starting with the rejection of the Indian constitution by the Nagas in Northeast, it spread in the form of Dravidian ethnic movement, demand for the formation of linguistic states with classic example of the movements for creation of separate states like Andhra Pradesh in South, movements in Jammu and Kashmir, Punjab, like that. So ethnic movements, I can just give briefly a special reference to the tribes. Who are tribes? Unlike the scheduled castes, there are differences among the scholars on the criteria identifying the tribes, scheduled tribes. The principle of some characteristics, few scholars they have agreed upon. The principal characteristics put a tribe हम काहू कहिबा their close association with nature, mainly the forest. Cannot some the forest dweller, mostly jungle with the ground. Relatively traditional means of cultivation, less developed market technology less developed. Near absence of rigid divisions within the community and discrimination on the basis of earth, unlike the caste division among the Hindus. The presence of the traditional chief, ତାଙ୍କ ଭିତରେ traditional chief ବାହାରେ ଥିବେ ତାଙ୍କର ଆଦେଶକୁ ସେମାନେ ମାନନ୍ତି. Attachment or reverence to traditional customs and culture. ଆମେ ଯଦି ଆମ ସମ୍ବିଧାନର ଆର୍ଟିକଲ 342 କୁ ଦେଖିବା ଆର୍ଟିକଲ 342 of the constitution attributes isolation, backwardness, cultural distinctiveness as the characteristic of scheduled tribe. ସେଥିରେ scheduled tribeଙ୍କର distinct feature କେତେଟା ଦିଆହେଇଛି isolation ସେମାନେ isolated ହେଇକି main stream ରୁହନ୍ତି backwardness ଏବଂ cultural distinctiveness their tribal culture is something distinct from others. Of course, these features they have undergone a lot of change and all that. So, various examples you can find from texts like the tribals of Northeast India or the frontier tribes. Northeast region has the largest number of tribal population in the country. They follow different religions, specifically Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, indigenous religious trends. So, the examples from the states of North India like Nagaland, Assam and Meghalaya. So, it is very important to note ethnic issues of Northeast India which are related to the geographical factors, regional dimensions, etc. So, some reference shall be quite relevant so far as this type of movements are concerned. Movement of the Nagas, which is often referred to as Naga insurgency, which is also termed as Naga national movement by the Nagas. It is the oldest movement related to the ethnicity. Then also Bodos of Assam, tribals of Assam, the Bodoland, Bodos, Kurvis, ଆପଣ ଶୁଣିଥିବେ Bodoland movement ବା Karbi Anglong movement in Assam. The Adivasis they have been involved in collective ethnic mobilization since 1980s. The Bodos and Kurvis, the These are the tribes of Assam. They're demanding creation of the separate states. And the tribals of Assam participated in the 6 year long Assam agitation led by All Assam Students Union, ASU, AASU. Then also tribes from Meghalaya. Meghalaya, the mostly dominant tribes are there. The Khasis, Jaintias, and Garos. Those who inhabit Khasi, Jaintia, and Garo hills of the state. And they're distinct for the existence of matrilineal system, which accords better position to women as compared to the patrilineal found among other communities of India. About the say patrilineal practices are more, not patriarchal. Mostly they follow patrilineal systems. You know, matruraichika family system, the tribes of Meghalaya, they are pursuing, in contrast to the patriarchal or patrilineal customs of other parts of the country. So 1960s, it has witnessed the movements of the ethnic groups, areas of Assam. Then also the tribals of other regions than the northeast or the entire tribes of the states, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Bihar, Jharkhand, Gujarat, Rajasthan, and several other states, they have been also mobilized by ethnic lines on several occasions. So in modern history, the revolt had been conspicuous against the intervention of the British authorities in the power of the tribal chiefs and against exploitation of their natural resources by the British and their collaborators, such as outside businessmen, bureaucrats, like. So we can now wind up mobilization of the people on the basis of markers like language, religion, culture, custom, race, etc. And the collective mobilization based on this is called ethnic mobilization. And the ethnic communities in such situations, they relate and compare themselves to other ethnic communities and have grievances which they want to get resolved. So the tribals of India, they have been involved in ethnic mobilization for different purposes, both before and after independence. They have taken recourse to both the violent and non-violent means. So success or failure of these movements depend also on other factors like political factors. But whatever it may be, the ethnic movements on ethnic mobilization is a continuous political process, and they have always tried to put pressure on the points of policy formation or decision making process to assert themselves. So I think we have covered very important issues today, like globalization and social movement, the relationship between the state market and social movements. Then we have a discussion on Dalit movement, backward class movements, OBCs and all that. Then the ethnic movements with special reference to the tribals. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the patient listening. So,
Thank you,
thank
sir.
you. I think it's already more than 7 p.m., 7:02. So, wish you all the best. Now, I now quit the platform. This okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Wish you all of you. I wish the best. Thank you.